Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This person has created a device that allows you to carry multiple bags at one time. It even allows you to carry multiple bags without using your hands. Please help me welcome the founder and CEO of Click and Carry, Kim McWood. How's it going, Kim?
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being on here. I know we were it's been a long time in the making, so I'm glad you're able to finally come on and kind of talk about your story with the audience and kind of really you're doing some amazing things. So I'm happy to have you on here today. I guess one of the questions that I always like to try to start with, just put things in perspective for the audience. If you can maybe just describe your product so kind of the audience knows what's going on or what the product is kind of as we get into it.
Sure. So this is Click and Carry. And Click and Carry is a simple handle device that allows shoppers to manage and carry multiple bags at once comfortably. And how it works is you simply twist it open. You load handle bags onto each side, any bag with the handle, plastic, paper, canvas. And the key is to evenly distribute the weight. So let's say you have 30 pounds of groceries. Do your best to put about 15 pounds on each side. Then once you get the bags in place, you click it together and you can either carry it or better, you can wear it and your hands free. And I'll quickly show you how it works over the shoulder because it really makes a difference. So here's a bag, and here's a second bag. And I love it over the shoulder.
So, and it's not too, I guess for me, and I try to work out quite a bit, so I'm not, it wouldn't bother me in terms of having some weight on the shoulders because that's what I'm used to. But for someone who's maybe not used to carrying weight, especially on their shoulder, is it still a comfortable thing? Have you gotten that feedback in terms of being comfortable with being on the shoulder?
Absolutely. In fact, so there's comfy gel on the bottom. It's not huge, but there's a good 4 millimeters. Okay. So it's great for the hand if you're going to carry it in your hands like this, just paint cans.
Yep.
But it's great on the shoulder. So the reason it's great on the shoulder is because you're using your back instead of your arm, your extremity as a support system. So the weight actually feels like half the weight. Obviously, you can't change the weight of the bags, but it really does feel like half the weight because you're using your back. It's magic. And it's funny because I'm making a compilation now. For example, when I was on Shark Tank, Barbara comes up onto the stage and gives it a whirl, and you could see her face change, and she says, "Wow!" And it's because it really does feel like half the weight.
And I saw her like, this really does make a difference, which is always cool when the sharks kind of give their stamp of approval or their thumbs up when they're actually using the devices or the products that people bring on the show. And this seems like this is also good maybe for like senior citizens, like the elderly, in terms of carrying bags, whether it's on their with their arms or on their shoulder.
Absolutely. In fact, there are a lot of older folks that have arthritis, so people love that because the bags tend to crease into your hands and arms. And by the way, you could use any bag. Plastic bags obviously are painful, but you could use a canvas bag as well. But yeah, it's great for the seniors. It's great for people who live in apartments like me. And it's great for moms because they can have a free hand to hold their baby and still have a free hand to open up their door because they're wearing their groceries instead of carrying them.
Nice. No, and I guess I hadn't even thought about that, but that definitely makes a difference. And even for like the men, because I know you had said with the paint cans, and do you find that a lot of, I don't want to say, I guess you can be a man or a woman in terms of like carrying paint cans in the house or from maybe your car to the home, and you're using this device to be able to carry, multiple paint cans at a time comfortably. I know times when I have paint cans, going back to the crease, it can kind of leave a crease in your hand, which is uncomfortable for me at times. So do you see or find a lot of construction workers, so to speak, who are carrying paint cans using the devices?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm currently talking to the Tractor Supply Company, Lowe's, and Home Depot because it really does make it easier to carry paint cans and construction pails. And on my packaging, I say that it carries 100 pounds, up to 100 pounds, but it actually doesn't even stress fracture until 153 pounds. So it's really strong. But I don't say that because I don't want anyone to get hurt. 100 pounds is a lot.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I find that the most people who are interested in the product are guys. And it's kind of the reason I invented it. I invented it because I broke up with my boyfriend and he used to carry in all the groceries. So I had to carry in my own groceries. And since I live in a condo, I had to go through multiple stairs, up an elevator, through doors. It's a pain in the butt. So I kind of stopped shopping for a little bit, and that's why I had to invent this. But I find that the guys love it because they're the ones who are stuck carrying the groceries for their ladies a lot of times. So it's funny. I don't know if you could attach clips, but I have 3 influencers in particular who have over 5 million views each. And they show the benefits of click and carry. And I laugh because the people who love it most are usually guys, because they're the ones carrying.
And that's, I'm glad that you said that, because I guess you lean more towards maybe women liking it more, using it more, wanting it more. But I know as you talked about the paint cans, and as I was thinking about it in real time with construction workers, and I guess guys having to carry the bags or the grocery bags in a house, I can definitely see that being a big hit among the guys, which is pretty cool. And I know you had told your story of the invention or inspiration behind the product of kind of breaking up with your boyfriend. I mean, that's interesting that you stopped shopping as a result of that for a while. That's I'm not sure if I'll consider that pretty extreme, but I guess that's a big one.
I was ordering food in and going out to dinner. Yeah, I was wasting a lot of money, and it was silly. So I buckled down and figured it out.
And it seems like you had to go through a lot of tests. And I know you said that your background, or in preparation and doing some research beforehand, understanding that your background is more so in the medical device industry, did you feel, because this is something that I'm always interested in, because people who've come on, a lot of times their background is not in the thing or the industry that they created their invention or their product is in. Did you have any reservations with, okay, I'm creating something with click and carry, which is kind of not necessarily in the medical device industry, or I guess how was that maybe transition? How did you kind of deal with like that aspect of
it? It's a completely different industry for sure, but I was in sales, and I started in pharmaceuticals and then on to medical device sales. And it's interesting because a lot of times the way to see the doctors is usually over lunch or breakfast. So I would find myself bringing in a bunch of food so that I could have time with the doctor to explain my product or my drug. I wouldn't bring it into surgery, obviously, for deep brain stimulation, but I actually used it on my job. And since I was demonstrating it for a living, it was just kind of a natural transition, although to a different industry, because obviously my target market now would be grocery stores, big box retailers, Lowe's, Home Depot, home improvement stores. So those are now my new clients. Yep. And in addition to trying to spread awareness and tell moms why they need this, and tell sports enthusiasts why they need this as a ski boot tote or to carry their soccer equipment, or why the construction guy or do-it-yourselfer who's painting her new art space needs a click and carry. So I guess it was kind of a natural transition. It's definitely a lot easier to explain than explaining deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's, essential tremor, and dystonia.
Oh, and I was going to say so, but even with that, I would imagine that with the medical device products and being in that industry, you weren't having to kind of worry about the manufacturing of the product and kind of having to deal with all that. It's more so just like you said, selling the product to the end user. But I would imagine with click and carry, you have to find out all of that, which I guess could have been a learning curve if you weren't used to that stuff before, in terms of dealing with manufacturers and CAD models and all that thing. Was that a big learning curve for you, or like how did you deal with that aspect of it?
Yes and no. That's a really good question. So interestingly, another reason why I invented this, I invented it. I filed for my patent. I have 2 utility patents. Nice. And it took quite a while to earn my patents. But all throughout it, I would talk to my doctors about it, because you can only talk about your product so much. So I would bring up my product, and one of my best friends, and her name is Dr. Jennifer Huey. She's a movement disorder specialist who was a neurologist who specializes in movement disorders at USC. And finally, she looked at me and said, "Well, you should up and stop talking about this and do something about it." And so I listened to her. And interestingly, at the time, she was living in Pasadena, and her upstairs neighbor was going to the Pasadena Design School. She was a Cornell undergrad, her neighbor, and then she was getting her master's of product design at the Pasadena Design School. So I actually hired her neighbor to help me with the 3D CAD print.
Nice.
And I went through 9 iterations, and the Pasadena Design School had access to a CAD printer. So each of my prototypes were about $200, whereas if I paid an engineer, a mechanical engineer out in the industry, it would be $2,000 per prototype. So for the same amount of money, for roughly $2,000, I was able to get 9 prototypes and find the winner, and then ultimately make a mold and check the viability of my product.
Nice. And it seems like just, I'm not sure if that was kind of the right, being at the right place at the right time or knowing the right people, but it seems like you definitely utilize your resources for that, which saved you a ton of money, which is, man, that's pretty, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, absolutely. And the funny thing is, and I am sorry I interrupted you. The funny thing is, I also knew the significance of making sure that my product was safe, because that's something we had to do in obviously medical device sales. And then in addition to that, there's so many free resources around too. I talked to the SBDC in Pasadena. I worked with SCORE. There is a Patent and Trademark Resource Center in every state. Some states actually have 2 or 3, where there are these librarians who are educated in everything in regard to the patent process. It's free. So go there. Nice. If you have this great idea. You could do your research. You could find out if your product is already out there. You could have access to local attorneys. I actually utilized a law student to do my patent search for me.
Nice.
So there's so many amazing resources out there. So any inventor can access those free resources and move your project forward without spending a dime.
No, and I love that you said all of that, because again, part of the podcast and having people on is to try to get the audience and more people to kind of, I would imagine that it can be overwhelming, not knowing the process and not knowing anything about it. Seems like you had a little bit more understanding of, I guess, just based on your background in the medical device industry with products and, like you said, testing products and things like that. And then you were very resourceful when it came time to like the IP side of things and developing a mold and things like that. So I'm trying to push people, and I'm saying all this to say that I'm trying to push people to have their idea and kind of get it out there. And like you said, it's a ton of resources to help you out so that things are not overwhelming or you're not doing anything, all this stuff yourself, and that it kind of lowers the price that you would have to pay. I would imagine that. So you saying all that stuff, how much up until the point of time before you start selling things, do you know how much roughly you are out of pocket expenses roughly before? Because somebody would think, man, she was out of tens of thousands of dollars, but it seems like that wasn't the case. Maybe outside of like the IP, which I know can kind of get pricey once you start drafting a patent application and whatnot. But with everything else, do you know approximately how much you were out of before you start selling the product?
So I was out about $25,000 for the patents, for my 2 patents, and about another $6,000 for my first mold. But that's because I didn't know about the Patent and Trademark Resource Centers. So if I had known that before, but by the way, another idea for inventors, a way to save money is access your local colleges. For example, UCLA and USC, they both have engineering departments. They have marketing departments and business schools where you could access help at the local colleges, or in many cases, for example, this semester at Emerson, there is a PR class, and they utilized Click and Carry and some other Shark Tank companies as their subjects for the semester. So I ended up getting a whole bunch of free PR and great advice from Emerson in Boston, because local colleges work on small businesses like mine. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do. And again, everyone out there, don't be scared. I spent a lot of money because I didn't know about all these resources. So that's why I'm bringing you this information, so you can do it a lot less expensively than me.
And I guess in terms of kind of really honing in on an IP side of things, because obviously, I mean, that's my specialty in terms of what I work on day in and day out. What was the first, maybe question number one, did you know about IP coming into it? It seems like you may have, just being in the medical device industry. And then number two, I guess was that an overwhelming process as you were going through it, or was it, kind of, even though it maybe was costly to you, was it kind of pretty straightforward? Because I've had people on who were Shark Tank contestants or non-Shark Tank contestants, and it's almost like hit or miss in terms of IP experience being kind of terrible or nightmare, and others, their IP experience with obtaining patents and things like that was pretty straightforward. So I guess, how was yours?
So I was put in touch with an attorney, and I love him. I think he's amazing. His name is Jason Farhadian, and I was put in touch with him through a friend, and he made the process pretty smooth, in my opinion. It did take 3 years for my first utility patent, so that was kind of difficult not to tell everyone about my idea because it took a whole 3 years, and that was a rarity at the time, and it was because we were, as a country, in a recession, so we didn't have as many people who were auditing the patents and granting the ability to have a patent at the time. So that was just based on bad timing. But no, it was a pretty smooth process. But what wasn't was getting my trademark name, Carrie. My name was actually abandoned, and I had to contest it. So I have a separate attorney for my trademark, and I love her too, Sharana Caton. She's amazing. So I was lucky. I found 2 amazing attorneys. But all of this could be done through the Patent and Trademark Resource Center for much less than I paid.
So I guess what made you, because for example, I've kind of filed trademarks for clients as well as patents. What made you not, I guess, use your patent attorney as your trademark attorney, or did you want to separate them, or did he just not kind of do trademarks? Because I know some patent attorneys, they just do strictly patents and don't maybe get off into like trademarks and other things.
No, I honestly, I didn't realize that was pretty dumb of me. And Sharona was a second referral from a friend named Oliver. Gotcha. But on a bright note, I still contact both of them and love them both. So we are friends for life now.
Nice. In terms of like the resource, because you said it a few times, with the Patent and Trademark Resource Center at different states, different cities. I guess what all do they do? Because I understand that there are free, programs out there that kind of educate you, and I know the USPTO try to do a lot in terms of that. But when it, I guess, comes down to drafting and filing trademarks or patents and with the USPTO, are you saying that the resource, they actually do that for you for free, or?
They help you, they guide you, they help you with the research. It's paid for by the Patent and Trademark Office. It's a government-funded program, and people could just search PTRC, and you'll see in your state where they're located. For example, in California, I believe we have 3, and then I'm here in Pennsylvania right now, and we also have 3 Patent and Trademark Resource Centers. So all of these librarians are educated on everything patent and trademark, down to the drawings, and they could offer advice to local attorneys, local artists to do your renderings. They just basically are trained to do everything and to guide you in the right direction. And I believe to even help you file, but I don't know that answer 100%, but I do know it's an amazing resource that's available to us.
Okay. And you're saying, and that's interesting. I had to look into that. I know they, like you said, that, and I think I'm familiar with the PTRC. I didn't realize they help you actual draft the application. That's legit if they're like literally helping you draft the application to file. I didn't realize that was a thing. It seems like it would be some type of an attorney or a patent agent that, and I think that's the case where you have to be an attorney or a patent agent to be able to file things with the USPTO. I mean, I guess you can do it pro se, but that's interesting if, I guess, you have the librarians and kind of the other people within that resource center that are drafting applications and helping you file that. I guess that's not something I was aware of.
I just want to make a correction. I don't know if they help to draft. I know that they
gotcha. Okay. Yep.
I'm sure that they say this is how it's done. You could do this yourself. For example, you can just send in your idea as a provisional patent. They'll explain all of that to you, but I don't know that they'll physically draft it, but I'm sure they will guide you in the right direction.
Got you. That makes perfect sense. So did you start to get a little restless with your patent attorney with the 3-year mark? And the reason I'm asking that, because a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, I was interviewing Raquel Graham, and she was on Shark Tank and was able to get a deal done with two of the sharks, and she I guess Lori, because Lori is typically the one on the show that's asking about the patents and things like that, and in her patent application, Lori asked about it, and the patent application just was taking longer, and sometimes it just takes longer. In your case, like you said, you had the recession going on, or COVID, or whatever the case may be, so it was taking longer. In some cases, that the art unit is crowded or whatnot, or lack of examiners in that art unit, things that take a little longer than anticipated. And that's just kind of what it is. It's nobody's fault. I guess the USPTO's fault, but that's just the way it goes. And I guess she almost fired her patent attorney because Lori and I think Damon John just had her convinced that something was going on because it was taking her patent so long to, I guess, get granted or whatever the case may be. And that was maybe a couple of reasons for the Sharks being out. But she almost fired her patent attorney as a result of it. Now, thankfully, she didn't fire her patent attorney, and her patent was granted ultimately. But I guess with the process being a little longer than what you anticipated, did you start to get restless with your attorney at all, or did you just communicate pretty good throughout the process with you?
I communicated pretty well with him. I mean, I knew it wasn't his fault, and I knew what the situation was. I knew that at the time we were going through a recession, and it was frustrating, of course, but this was at the time just a side gig anyway. So I had my real job to worry about, and I just was forced to wait patiently. I mean, I could have moved forward with it, and I would have been safe because I was the first one to file for this particular new and useful product, but I didn't know that at the time. So I was taking a chance if I decided to launch before that. So I just took that time to get prepared and to get ready for the big launch.
Nice. And you talked about at the time that this being a side gig. So have you moved into this being like a full-time position for you? And I guess, how was that process? Because I think that's another thing that a lot of maybe inventors struggle with in terms of, do I just quit everything and go into this thing full-time, or is it better to have like a slower progression and kind of wait till things start to really pick up and take off and have a decent amount of sales to be able to support me full-time without, such that I can quit my full-time job?
Yeah, I would say take it slow. And in my case, I have been doing this full-time for a little over 3 years now. And
nice.
Because I found out 3 weeks before I was airing on Shark Tank, and that's when I gave notice to leave my job because it would have been a conflict of interest.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I did it in my spare time, but so I wouldn't advise that, but in my circumstance, it's something that I needed to do, and it worked out for me because I had that nice bump from Shark Tank and the instant overnight awareness, which is an amazing benefit of being on the show. So it worked out for me, but I would suggest that if someone has this great idea, just keep it a side gig until you can financially support yourself, because it's a big risk.
Nice. So, and what was that, I guess, process for you? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Because, I mean, what made you say, okay, enough of this, I'm going to go all in with Click and Carry and my product and my company? Because it seems like, especially if you have a good job, good paying job, good benefits, whatever the case may be, I'll just keep this other thing a side gig, I guess, until I no longer can, as opposed to jumping off into it full time. It seems like that's like a big decision. So was that something that you always wanted to do, or I guess, how did you kind of reconcile that?
Yeah, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, and I actually had my first invention when I was 15, but my mother wouldn't give me the money to patent it. So, and sure enough, we saw it in a pool store a couple of years later. And
that's how that happens.
Yep. So I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, and I really love working for myself. I love being my own boss. So I'm kind of a natural born risk taker. I mean, I left my family, and my parents made me go to school here in my local town for 2 years and said I could go wherever I want. After 2 years, thinking I'd go to Lehigh or Penn State, which are only a couple of hours away. And instead, I moved across the country. So I'm kind of a risk taker at heart. And I think entrepreneurs have to be risk takers. And I really do. I love working for myself. It's scary. I mean, I don't make the same amount of money I used to make. I used to make a fortune, but I have the potential to make a fortune if this business continues to do well, and eventually I'll sell it one day, hopefully for a ton of money. But at this point, I'm not there. I'm just working hard and living life, but I love working the 15-hour days because it's to my benefit, and
For sure.
I love the work.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost interesting. It seems like back maybe 30, 40 years ago, it was a thing to, hey, just work for this company for 30 years and ride off into the sunset and retire. You got to get the pension. It seemed like that was more of a thing, at least in my opinion, and I may be incorrect with this as things play out. It seems like you almost kind of need, and what they say, multiple streams of income, and because it seems like it happens more times than not where you have the layoffs, hires, and firing, and it's more kind of cyclical. And if you're just kind of dependent on just one company for all your income, that's a lot of power these days that you're giving to one company. So in my opinion, I always just recommend that kind of people do something, even if it is just a side gig, but at least something that is kind of making some additional income in case you do have that life-changing event with maybe losing a job or getting laid off. I'm not sure if is that something that you would agree with, or I guess how would you?
I would, especially where we are today, and there doesn't seem to be the same amount of loyalty, like you said, that there was in the past, or who knows if your job is secure. So what do they say? It's nice to not put all of your eggs in one basket. And
Sure. Yeah.
And honestly, for me, this was a labor of love. Even if I didn't make money at it, it's fun that I was able to bring my own invention to market, and I met a lot of friends as a result, and clients who become friends. It's funny because right now I'm onboarding for Albertsons Safeway, which is huge. I'm thrilled. And the paperwork's really difficult because I'm not from the grocery industry.
Okay. Yep.
So I called my buyer from Ralph's, who is one of my best friends. We just met when I started selling at Ralph's grocery store, which is a division of Kroger in Southern California.
Yep.
And he was my buyer. And fast forward many years, I mean, I go to dinner with he and his wife all the time, and I'm invited to the 4th of July bash at his house. So it's funny how your clients become your friends. But I called him up because I didn't know how to fill out this paperwork. So he spent a couple hours with me on Friday and helped me fill out the paperwork. And then I was submitting it last night, and I realized that the one page was somehow erased and I didn't save it properly. So he and I are going to talk today, and he's going to hopefully remember all the answers because I couldn't remember them. So he's going to help me with that one page.
Nice. No, that's pretty cool. And man, you said something that I think is amazing and doesn't get enough credit, when you can have something in your head as an ideal, and then you can actually not only bring that thing to life as an actual product, but it's such that other people want it. And I was talking about this on another podcast with someone. Typically, if you're having that same if you're having a problem, other people are having that same problem as well. So to the extent that you can kind of develop a product, or kind of go through the process to actually create a physical product and actually sell it to people, I don't know. I just think that a lot of people are probably having that same problem, so other people are going to likely at least buy the product once. But then I just still think that's a pretty cool thing to do, and not so many people. Even if you have a patent, not too many people to say, okay, I actually kind of brought my product to market and sold it and things like that, which is cool, and it as well as admirable as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. It's been a fun adventure, and it's funny because you were talking about people filing for patents, and last year Amazon asked me if I would go to the Patent and Trademark office to film a clip. And it was with Kathy Vidal, who is the current director of the Patent and Trademark office. She's an amazing woman.
Nice.
She's, I believe she's an electrical engineer and an aerospace engineer. She has multiple engineering degrees, and she has a JD like you. Yep. And now she's the director of the Patent and Trademark office. But the reason she wanted us to go there, I was with 2 other female inventors, is because only 13% of patents are owned by women. So we wanted to promote that, and I was proud to be a part of that. And I could also give you the link to that video. It's just a 3-minute clip, but we're trying to let girls know, hey,
Yep.
you could be an inventor too.
No, for sure. And if you can provide that clip, that'd be great. And again, I'm with you. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and yeah, it just doesn't happen often. So as much as possible, I try to get women inventors on here to show, hey, this is not just something that man can do, but women are just as capable and at doing this and being successful at it as well. So I mean, I really love when I have a woman on to kind of tell their perspective and their story, and it seems like you kind of went through it all more or less on your own and kind of figuring out things. I don't want to say the hard way, but figuring out things, which you have, and you've been pretty good at it, pretty successful at it, which is cool. I know we talked about Shark Tank. What was that decision like to say, okay, I'm gonna go on there? And I would imagine that it was kind of a crazy process, especially if you kind of went on, I think during like that COVID period, which I'm not sure if that was the time you went on, but what was that decision like to say, okay, I think I'm ready and maybe need to go on Shark Tank for whatever reason?
Oh my gosh. It was the easiest decision. I don't know if you know this, but I hold the record for the most attempts ever to get on the show. I wanted to be on the show so badly. I love the show. And I knew that was my way to create public awareness. And now people could go on TikTok and become famous, or Instagram and become famous. But for me, I knew that I needed to be on that show. Plus, I wanted a shark. It's interesting because I believe it was either season 2 or season 3. I was selected to be on, and I worked with the producers for a couple of months. And then at the 11th hour, I was nixed.
Really?
And I wish I put up a fight. But fast forward many years, I believe I applied 7 or 8 times. Fast forward many years, I get a new producer. His name is Sean. He's awesome. And he asked me if I remembered him. And I said, well, you look familiar. And I just assumed I knew him from around Los Angeles. I live in the same part of town as he. We both lived on the west side. I live in Brentwood. And I just assumed I knew him from there, or from the gym or something like that. And he said, no, he said, I was the assistant producer when we were working with you back in the day. I just didn't remember his last name. So it came full circle, and he was just so much fun to work with. So I worked with Sean and Maggie, and they were awesome, and they had great ideas. In fact, one of the ideas actually came from Max Swedlow, and they said to come out, we could have a unicyclist juggling while she's wearing your click and carry. So she was wearing 4 bags, juggling and riding the unicycle. And I thought that sounded like a great idea until I found out that I had to find that person. But lo and behold, things, knock wood, fell into place, because turns out there were 2 unicycle schools in Los Angeles. And the first one I called was Christina, and it turns out she was the world unicycle champion from Germany. So it worked out perfectly. But can you imagine hearing that you have to find a unicyclist who also juggles? That's crazy.
but it seems like you are definitely resourceful and kind of like the stars align with having 2 What's the chances of you having 2 unicyclist school right in your backyard? That's
crazy. Yeah, it's funny because I remember when I was auditioning her, and ironically, I bring up USC a lot, but I was actually over right by USC where I met her and saw her in action, and she was amazing. She's incredible what she could do on that thing.
That's pretty cool. So then you said 7 times, from my understanding, is how many times you audition.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. And you call it the best day and I guess the worst day all at the same, the best and scary day for you. I guess what made it like the best day as well as the scary day, the day you actually filmed the episode?
Well, to actually be able to go and to be on that show was a dream to me, because I love the show. I think it's great. And it was scary because, I mean, it's intimidating. And interestingly, all the casting agents knew me so well because I auditioned so many times. In fact, you didn't even have to go to the open casting calls anymore. I would just have to resubmit and make new videos. And there's a lot to the process. But luckily, I would just modify each year. And I had a nice base since I auditioned so many times and made it to the part where you're either at it or not. So the casting agents were there. So there was extra nerves for me because I wanted to make them proud. There were about 300 people in the studio, all the lights, the camera, the sound people, of course, the sharks. I was a nervous wreck. And when I went out to make my mark, Kevin said, or someone said, say hi to Kevin. And I looked up and I said, hi, Kevin. And it was Robert. And Robert was so offended. And he said, I'm not Kevin. Yeah. He said, I'm not Kevin. Oh, I said, I know you're not Kevin. I said, oh, and congratulations on your twins. I said, I'm sorry. Someone said to say hi to Kevin. And I just looked up. I said, it's just nerves. I said, I know very well who you are. But I could tell he was a little bit offended. And he was actually the first one to go out, but he actually came back in. And it's interesting because they edit the videos in interesting ways. For example, it looks like Lori went out right away and she didn't. It was mostly Lori and Barbara talking about Click and Carry until the end. And then at the very end, Mark and Barbara came in. So it's interesting the way it's manipulated, but it's for good TV. And
yeah, for sure.
Another interesting story is I was on the year of COVID, and it was by accident because I actually filmed the year before and I didn't make it to air. And I didn't know why, but the executive producer, his name is Clay Newbill. He's wonderful. He called me and told me I didn't make it to air. I was devastated. And then fast forward a couple of months, he called me back and he said, and I didn't answer the phone. It was from a funny number. It was like a Google number from Cambria. And I listened to his message and I could tell in the message he was smiling. So I called him right back and he said, Kim, remember you asked me if an archived episode ever makes it to air? I said, yeah, of course. And he said, do you remember what I said? I said, yeah, I do. I said, you said I never say never, but it's never happened before. He said, well, it happened because of COVID. So ABC bought my episode. So if you look at my season, my episode is the only one where no one's social distancing. It's because we shot the episode a year earlier.
Wow. So have they done that since, where they kind of picked up an episode from a prior season or from another season?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know for sure. I wish I knew that answer, but I know that they call people back. They'll say, can you come on again? But I don't know. I know that Clay said it's never happened before. And to me, it was very lucky. And it was perfect timing because I don't know if Clay had anything to do with this, but it aired in December of 2020. And it was right before the holidays. And my product is a perfect stocking stuffer. So it was just perfect timing for me.
Flying off the shelves, I bet.
It was great. Yes. Thank goodness for that because, like I said, I quit my job. So to have that overnight influx of orders was phenomenal.
So did you quit before it actually aired? So were you just like banking on it, like, hey, regardless of this thing doing good or not, I'm out of where I'm essentially all in and I'm done with the job? Or did you kind of know, like, okay, this thing is going to take off once it airs?
No, I didn't know. I had no idea how it was going to be edited, but I am confident in myself. I was really good at my job in sales. And in fact, it's funny. I was just in Los Angeles to get my place ready for my next tenant. I rent my place to traveling nurses. And it was close to my birthday. So a bunch of my old clients brought me out to dinner. So I had dinner with 2 neurosurgeons and 4 movement disorder specialists. And they're very important in their fields in Los Angeles, but to me, they're just best friends. So I was confident that I could get another job, and I still can. Let's say, God forbid, something happens and Click and Carry takes a turn for the worse. Yep. I still have my education, and I still have my ability to sell neurological products. So I'll be okay.
And again, I think that's a very great point, because at the end of the day, once you're all kind of done with, or on the back end of life, let's just say, you're not going to have any regrets because you at least tried it, regardless of how it works out. And I know it'll work out great, but I couldn't imagine you not trying it and you sticking it out with the job, with the sales job, and then you having that, what if I actually did do this? It seems like that would be a terrible, kind of regrettable moment towards the end of life, as opposed to saying, yep, I did it, and regardless of the outcome, I'm glad I did that, because I'm sure you have met people. I'm sure you have experienced things that you probably would have never experienced, but for you actually kind of going full steam with the Click and Carry. So I think that's another great point that you make with being glad that you, I guess, was all in on it. So then with Mark and Barbara, they ultimately came in with the deal. So one of the things I found out through these interviews is, okay, just because someone gets a deal on TV doesn't mean that it closes or it's kind of signed pen and paper. Was that something that kind of made it through the finish line, or is it still kind of in the works with those two? Or I guess how did that play out at the end of the day with those two?
Sadly, it didn't work out for me. I don't know exactly why, but I'm still the 100% owner. And the good news is I have access to both of them. I could reach out at any time. It's funny because I actually sent this to Mark recently. I don't know if he's still the owner of the Mavericks, but I sent him this and I wrote him a note because this is another example. I made, this is not pretty, but I made this for Disney. I met with them and I wanted to show them that their QR code actually works. So if you scan that, it'll bring you into the Disney website. And for Mark, I told him about this, but he has Cost Plus Drugs where he helps a lot of people to pay just, I believe it's 15% above the actual cost of the drug. So it helps a lot of people because drugs can be expensive. And I told him, we could put Cost Plus Drugs on this with a QR code and people could renew their prescription every month just by scanning into the QR code and clicking, yes, I would like another prescription this month or whatever the case may be, or working with the doctor. But thank you. So yeah, I reach out. I have a lot of friends who work with him. He's an amazing guy. So is Barbara. Yeah. So I still have access, and I was actually talking to my marketing VP. His name is Chase, and he thinks I should approach Mark again because I'm going into Albertsons Safeway, which is huge. I believe it's just that division, but they have almost 5,000 stores. And then Areas US is interested. And I just right this second found out that I have a meeting with the buyers from the Tractor Supply Company. So I have all of these huge accounts that may be happening this year, and it's going to cost a lot of money. So I might, reapproach them or maybe Mark and say, listen, I know you have people who had successful launches in H-E-B or in Kroger. Can you guide me? Or maybe he'd be interested in coming in now. So I'm actually looking to sell a portion of my business at this time. So I'll have less than a 100%, but I need to do this. I need to parlay so that I can afford to launch this product properly.
And as one of my mentors said, I would rather have a percentage of a watermelon or a portion of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. So to the extent that helps grows the company and you're still, have that percentage and maybe a majority share, whatever the case may be, that's, at least in my opinion, better than having 100% of maybe a smaller company if you can help, if you can get some type of investment and that helps grow the company. So no, that's cool. So I guess what did you think on the show when Barbara actually offered just to buy the company? Because I thought that was an interesting offer by her. And I guess you could have maybe took it in one of two ways in terms of, okay, I really have something here to the point where she wants to buy the entire company, or maybe she just doesn't want to work with me. I'm not sure. You could have took it either way, but at least the way I took it is, okay, she at least thought that maybe it was something there to the point where she offered to buy the entire company. So I guess how did you process that offer by Barbara on the show?
I took it the other way. I was really insulted. I don't know if I remember the blood rushing to my face. I was so offended. And it's funny. It was such an uncomfortable experience because I was so nervous that I ran out of saliva. I had no saliva. So not only it's funny because I'm constantly licking my lips in the video, and it's just because there was no saliva. I was that nervous. And luckily I hit a bottle of water off stage. And at one point I had to leave the stage and take a sip of water, and everyone was laughing. You're not supposed to do that. You're not allowed. But I literally had nothing left to speak with. But I was insulted when she made that offer. And it's funny. I remember that feeling of the blood rushing to my face. I don't know if it's visible on screen, but I did notice, you could tell that I get mad at Kevin a couple of times during my clip. I wanted to pop him a few times.
But it seems like they did a good job editing, because I guess it wasn't noticeable in terms of you being like kind of upset or insulted with Barbara at that offer, at least not just watching that episode. I guess I did it. It wasn't noticeable to me. But as you put out, said she could have took it one of two ways: I have something, or how dare you like offer me that?
Yeah. But the good news is, and you could see it in the editing, she actually defended me later because Kevin tried to lowball me, and
She always does.
And yeah, and she defended me. So that's when I knew that she probably had my back, and sure enough, she did. And she and Mark were conspiring and made me an offer, and it was awesome because
Nice.
Mark Cuban's my idol, and Mark Cuban also says what you say about the watermelons and the grapes.
Yeah.
That's one of his catchphrases too.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And that, I mean, kudos to you for not getting offended and to the extent where, because again, obviously she came back and made a deal, and you guys had kind of you agreed to her deal, but kudos for you for not being like, screw you. You just sorted me and still being able to put that aside and okay, business is business, and if you're willing to help me get to the next point or grow the business, then I'm all for it. Even though maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I didn't think of you into a high of a regard.
No, I mean, it wasn't mad at her. I understood it's business, but it's funny though, in a way it kind of hurt me because the offer that they made was pretty bad, 40%.
25 or something.
Yeah, it was not a great deal. And I remember thinking, oh my God, America's going to think I'm stupid for making that deal. But I purposely didn't counter because of what had gone on before, because and at that point Lori had already gone out, so I just didn't counter, and because I mean it was a dream to have two sharks, and it still will be, and hope the door's still open, Mark and Barbara.
Absolutely.
Who knew that it would take 3 years to get into all these retailers, but it's not good, it's happening.
and again, that's a good segue because I was going to ask you in terms of one of the biggest breakthroughs. I mean, obviously Shark Tank seemed like it's one of the, if not the biggest breakthrough, but just kind of doing some research, Walmart, Lowe's, Kroger, as well as obviously Amazon. How just being in those retailers such as Kroger, such as Lowe's, such as Walmart, I mean, these are some heavy hitters here. So how has that been? Because it seems like that's been like, oh man, it just kind of boosts up confidence and like, okay, I can really do this.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, all the new accounts are new, and the only one I've been in long term would be the Ralphs, the Kroger, and then Meijer, which is a Midwest company.
Yeah, that's a Michigan thing. I'm here in the Detroit Metro, Michigan, and Meijer is, man, that's everywhere. I'm
trying to get Meijer to move it to the right department. It's in the back. It needs to be at the front with the reusable bags. So for Albertsons Safeway, I'm building a shipper, which is basically the case opens up and becomes a pretty display. So I'm hoping that with the new shippers that Meijer will put me closer to the cash register because it's an impulse item. So, but make sure next time you're at the store, if you could take a picture of it for me, that would be awesome.
And I'm literally going to walk, because I go to Meijer every week for grocery shopping and whatnot, and I'm definitely going to find this thing and take a picture and send it to you.
Send it to me. I would love to see it. My friend Kate is also in Michigan and sends me pictures occasionally, but I love working with them. They've been great. So this is a new transition, and it's because, things were getting harder online, and some of these Chinese companies like Temu and Alibaba are ruthless, and they try to steal my design. I pay people. And I'm with this company now, an AI company that finds listings, and we have them taken down. But it's a lot of work. It's like playing whack-a-mole to get these.
That's what everybody says. Yep.
It's a nightmare. It's just to get these imposters down. So I knew that I had to make a transition. So my new goal this year is to get into all these retailers. I just need some funding to get there properly, because you only have one chance to do well in these stores. Yep. So I want to put my best foot forward. And so cross your fingers, say a prayer for me that it's Absolutely. All successful.
And I was going to ask you, with the copycatters, do they actually copycat the name as well as the product, or just the product? It seems like they maybe do both. And the reason I'm asking that is because I was talking to a gentleman, it's the Edison. I think he has a company called the Edison, where they essentially fund these lawsuits and without, you, or finance the lawsuit without you as the owner or the trademark owner having to pay anything, and they get judgment and they give you a portion of the proceeds, and that's kind of their business model. So I'm not sure, but again, they don't do it for patents, but more so for trademarks and copyright. So I wasn't sure if when the copycats, whether it's Alibaba or Temu, if they actually do the product, or both the product as well as the trademark, the name of it?
They're ruthless. They do both. Usually they don't include the name. And luckily I have trademarks and copyrights as well, and in multiple countries. It's been a learning curve, but they're so ruthless. They even steal my images. There's pictures of me holding my product on their listings. So that's why I'm getting smart. So like I said, I work with this AI company that has been successful. I have a meeting next week with the Patent and Trademark Office, with their executives in Shanghai. And I'm trying to get a group together of my Shark Tank pals. Right now, there are about 7 of us who have been infringed upon, but I haven't opened it up to the whole group yet, but to my Shark Pals group. But a lot of us have had the experience with knockoffs lately. So we're trying to raise a public awareness and let people know, don't buy from Temu, don't buy from Alibaba. And the government needs to step in and not allow them to sell in the United States. Or if they are, they shouldn't be able to come in tariff-free. I produce my product in China. I have to pay a huge tariff to bring my product in. The Temu people do not, because they say that they're based out of Boston, and I believe that their warehouses may be in Ireland where they don't have to pay importation taxes. I don't know exactly how it works. I might be starting a rumor here, but needless to say, there's a reason why your product is so inexpensive. They don't have to pay the same importation taxes we do, and it's going to bring down a lot of American businesses if people continue to shop for these imposters, and a lot of it is subpar product anyway.
Absolutely. Yep. No, and I 100% agree. I had Nightcap it on a couple of weeks ago, and that interview hasn't dropped yet, but he talked about actually going to, I think, Congress or someone and saying, hey, you guys need to do something about it, just because the patent laws typically were made for retail, somebody, infringing your product maybe at the retail level, but it wasn't necessarily meant for the e-commerce. So you guys need to do something on the e-commerce side of things with legislations to be able to do something about this. And I'm still like amazed that, again, Alibaba and Temu, these are companies. These are like big companies. This isn't somebody creating an Amazon page and, like you said, doing a whack-a-mole and getting them taken down. These are big companies that if they're selling knockoffs, I think Shein is another one that, my understanding, they kind of do a little bit kind of sketchy business with, stealing other people's copyrights and trademarks. And yeah, that's crazy that I guess the U.S. government, like, doesn't do anything about that now at the expense of, like you said, our working people who are building businesses here in the U.S. and trying to make a good living, and they run a risk of getting put out of business or having their product infringed upon by these Chinese or companies overseas that are essentially stealing and infringing and copying upon their product, which, to me, that's amazing that they haven't kind of did something sooner rather than later.
And it's interesting. So Michael from Nightcap is a part of the group.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he was animated talking about that stuff.
As he should be. And I may be able to invite him to my meeting next week. And I met with the IP executives at Temu so far, and we told them about our difficulty getting our listings taken down. So they've been working with us, and it's been better. And they in turn put us in touch with the people with the Alibaba group. So it's been helpful. But the reason this is important and why Congress needs to act is because there's no incentive to get a patent or IP protection. If, for example, if someone becomes famous, let's say on TikTok, all of a sudden their product is going to be knocked off by a Chinese company and put on Temu or Shein or Alibaba. Well, what's the incentive of paying all that money and working so hard to invent things if it's going to be knocked off? So something has to be done. Plus, they need to protect us. I mean, we hire people. We keep the economy flowing.
No, and I agree with that 100%. And I do think they will ultimately do something about it, because it seems like this thing is starting to get really bad. I'm just surprised that it's taking them so long on this. And again, to the extent that somebody wants to do it fairly and kind of go back to their drawing board and create a product from a competition standpoint, I'm all for that. But somebody just copying the same exact thing with, like you said, the quality not being nearly as good as what you're doing because they're trying to get it out quick, then I think that's complete BS. And they definitely need to do something sooner rather than later. So I did want to ask you about like new products, because I know, especially how important it can be in terms of kind of trying to develop a product line for the business as opposed to having maybe just that one product? Is that something that you thought about? Or I know you're a creative person and definitely are not short on ideas. So is that something that you kind of thought about in terms of, okay, what would be the next product or the next thing that I can kind of create and kind of get out there to kind of create more of a product line as opposed to just kind of one product?
Sure. Yes. So right now I'm doing two things. I'm introducing a simple version of click and carry, which would be better for an arthritic hand because they won't have to twist. It's not as stable because the bags won't be locked in or the pails won't be locked in, but it would be simpler for an arthritic hand. And then more importantly, I have this new strapping system that uses, again, your back as a support system. So there would be a strap around diagonally to the hip and then one around the waist. And I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah,
But
no, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely don't want you to disclose more than needs to be disclosed. But it seems like you are the wheels are turning, the gears are turning in terms of like new products, more products that kind of further develops that product line outside of the flagship device.
Yeah. And this product's going to be perfect for the do-it-yourselfer industry or the construction industry. And it could be modified for different users. So it could be modified for painters and plumbers, and it's pretty amazing. So the good news is now that I'm talking to those three companies, Tractor Supply Company, Lowe's, and Home Depot, it would be a natural progression to add this to their product line.
Absolutely. No, that's cool. That's cool. And then I guess maybe one of the final two questions is what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? That's something that I always kind of want to get you guys feedback on, just because I would imagine that a number of aspiring entrepreneurs watch this and it's almost like they're kind of one toe in, one toe out. Do I go in with my idea? Because everybody has ideas, just kind of based on going through life and encountering problems and kind of developing solutions to those problems. Maybe they're keeping it for themselves, or maybe they just have it in their head as an idea and haven't kind of put it pen to paper and start the steps to actually create a physical product. But what would you say to those people who are maybe on the fence or aspiring to be an entrepreneur, but just haven't taken that leap of faith yet?
Well, I would say that if you have a great idea or a product or service and you believe in your heart it's a good idea, don't listen to the naysayers. Just go for it. What do you have to lose? There's nothing to lose. Like I said, I did mine on the side. It was a side gig. So I had nothing to lose, just some free time. But as I mentioned, it was labor of love. So I would say forget the naysayers. If you know in your heart you have a great idea, you go for it.
I like that. And then I guess the last question is, how can people, number one, purchase the product? We know you can purchase it at Myers. And then I guess the number two, how can people follow you as well as the company Click and Carry to kind of be up to date on the latest and greatest?
That would be amazing, because that's one of my deficits. I'm not so great with social media, so I would love followers. So on Instagram and TikTok, it's at Click and Carry, ClickandCarry. And then on Facebook, it's just Click &Carry. Okay. And you could buy Click and Carry online pretty much anywhere. So Amazon, clickandcarry.com, Lowe's.com, Kroger.com, Walmart.com. So it's pretty much everywhere.
Nice. Great. Oh, that's cool. And I'm going to definitely see you that picture. I'm going to Myers this weekend, and I'll definitely see that picture once I find it. But yeah, I'll put those social media handles as well as the website when this comes out. I'll put those in the description so people can follow you, as well as kind of go to the website, and if they want to order it. And like you said, whether it's on Amazon or any other e-commerce platform, don't do it from Alibaba and Temu
or Shein.
Or Shein, yeah, to the extent that is on there. But any other ones that's legit, definitely feel free to order it. I thank you for coming on here. And again, the audience, I hope that you had your paper and your pen, because she dropped a lot of good information, especially with the resources that you guys can really tap into and take advantage of to kind of lower those costs. Because I know the process can be expensive, and being able to lower the cost, I think that helps out in terms of getting people into the invention game, into the entrepreneur game. So until next time, audience, take care.
Good luck.